the Weavers team for the Work That Reconnects network. So I'm so excited to be here to offer a webinar in a topic that's been very important to me in the last year. I'll introduce myself a little more later on, but I've been involved with the work since the 90s. And I just completed with Debra the community resilience model, train the trainer training. And when we say CRIM, which is CRM, we're talking about the community resilience model. And Debra, wave and say hello, and she'll be talking more about herself, but she's a very long time somatic trauma therapist. And so she'll be sharing a lot of that work with us. So before we get started, let's take a moment to bring our thoughts and our attention present into this moment. Perhaps bring your awareness to your feet, standing on the earth. Just taking a moment to ground. We've all been running around. Life is very full and hectic. And as we're sending our attention down and paying attention to the ground, let's send some gratitude down to Mother Earth. Thank you, Pachamama. Thank you, Gaia, this amazing planet that we're part of. And ask that she be with us, which she always is, be with us and bring her wisdom forward in this circle today. And that's the earth and the air and the water and the sun and all our fellow beings on this planet. Giving gratitude and inviting that wisdom into our group today. And as is often traditional in Work That Reconnects, we offer an invitation to the beings of the three times. We ask that the ancestors be with us, those from the past. And we ask that the future ones, the future beings who are pulling us forward to be our best selves, and then all the present ones. So just take a moment to look around at the faces that are here with us today and just give your gratitude to all these amazing people who've shown up today to learn to work with trauma in a wiser way in the Work That Reconnects. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And we are going to do a little bit of deep sharing in a couple small groups. So just to be sure we're comfortable with that, I wanted to share a few very basic guidelines. This is our opening slide, which I talked about. And we'll hold material and confidentiality. We'll really drop in and listen with our hearts as well as our bodies. Listen with curiosity as much as possible, refrain from judgment. Ensure everyone is invited into the conversation, move up, move back. We'll be timing conversations, but somebody might get going, and just make sure there's time is held. Use I statements and avoid generalizations and judgments. Like, assume the positive intent. This is an incredibly wonderful group of people. And then harvest the key ideas that come through. And I think that's what I had to share for the moment. Is it Debra next?
Yeah. Constance, could you put the PowerPoint back up again?
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great. Stop. There we go.
And sort of go through to slide 4. Oh, no, go back. I guess it was changed. So go back to the first one. Yeah. So welcome, everyone. I'll tell you a little bit more about my background and history a little bit later. Right now, I just wanted to welcome you to the Community Resiliency Model. We're doing an introduction of this material today. So thank you for taking time out of your Saturday to be with us. CRIM, as Constance talked about, it was developed by Elaine Miller Karras. And it was originally developed through the state of California Mental Health Services. And it was designed to provide a biology based model of intervention that is easily accessible, affordable, and adaptable to all humankind. So this CRIM work has roots in many, many modalities. Elaine has studied a lot of different things. I know I come from a somatic experiencing background, and Elaine was part of the somatic experiencing organization for quite a while. So a lot of the material is drawn from that, as well as focusing. And there are quite a few other things that have influenced the CRIM model. So those of you you guys are from primarily the WTR background, but a lot of this material might look familiar to you, and there might be other names of things that you end up seeing. So that is the community resiliency model. And then Constance.
Why don't you just start with your going and introduce yourself, and then I'll come back around.
Perfect. Okay. So I am really honored to be here with you today. I've been doing this trauma work for over 31 years. I came to this work from my own personal journey. I actually had birth trauma and I had 5 traumatic brain injuries. And in the 80s, when I actually started to do this work, I was trying different modalities like Feldenkrais and body work and Heller work and body-centered psychotherapy. And I was doing quite a lot, and even Hakomi therapy I did. And I ended up getting triggered from all of the work, and it really brought my PTSD to the surface. So what someone ended up saying was, you need to go meet Peter Levine. So I went and met him in the 1980s. And so I have been doing work with trauma. It's influenced my practice. And it actually brought me back from a place because in the 80s, I actually had to quit my job. I had to scale back my life so significantly, where I used up all my savings and I was living in poverty in a very, very difficult place. And so the material that we're going to introduce to you today is a starting point for the work that has allowed me to recover. I've recovered fully without medications from a really very debilitating condition. And I'm able to be part of organizations that share this teaching of this material. And so I'm so thrilled to be able to bring it to you today. So thank you all, and I look forward to getting to know each of you a bit more.
And I'm really thrilled to be able to do this with Debra, with her depth of experience in somatic experiencing and trauma therapies of different modalities. As I said, I've been doing the work that Reconnects since the 90s. It brought together, and for me, my Buddhist background, which started when I was in high school, and my environmental activism and my theater background. And so the work that Reconnects just brought all those things together for me. And the reason I'm here today is this past year has been a doozy. Anybody else have that happen to them? And I noticed that my early childhood trauma was getting triggered. And I am, privileged. I live in a beautiful place. I have a home. I have work that I can do from the computer. And so much compassion arose in me about how many people are living with so much trauma from what's happening in the world today, not to mention historic trauma, intergenerational trauma, racial trauma. And so I've done in the last year a very deep dive into investigating different modalities of working with trauma and my own nervous system, and found CRIM and have been doing somatic experiencing, and just thought this CRIM work, so was a complement to the work that Reconnects, and tools that we can bring as facilitators into our workshops to make sure that we aren't re-triggering people, but we're really looking at the work as a resilience building tool, which it is. And I'll talk more about that later. I think those are the things I was supposed to say. Yeah, great. Okay. Deborah. Share the, what? You're muted, dear.
Oh, yes. If you could share the biological slide. Yeah. There we go. So there are,
Sorry.
no, go back. Yeah. There are common biological reactions in most all humans after traumatic experiences. Extraordinary life events end up happening to us, and we can react in ways that can cause suffering to ourselves, to others, and to the planet. Now, current scientific research shows that our brains can change. Back in the 80s, when I did this, they were saying that, nerves couldn't change in the brain, but we know that that's different right now. And the CRIM model provides science-based tools for working with our nervous system to be better able to handle life's challenges by getting back into the balance in body, mind, and spirit. Everyone has a really strong CRIM principle is everyone has the ability to learn tools that can help to restore resilience after we have a stressful or a traumatic event. And that doesn't mean just getting over it. It means becoming better because of it once we've resolved it. So in CRIM, we're trying to help people understand that many of the common reactions we experience, they're in response to a highly stressful or traumatic experience. They're the result of how human beings are actually designed. For example, like if we're in a state of distress, it can affect different organ systems in the body. And we might not realize that problems in our digestive system might be because there's a lot of unresolved material about our past experience when we were 2 years old. And that is actually what's causing the set of reactions in our physiology. My background is I'm an acupuncturist and I come from a traditional Chinese medicine background. We've had this for centuries of liver overacting on the spleen stomach. And this describes when we're in a stress response, the digestion shuts down. Our reactions are not because we're weak, but rather they're because we're elegantly human. And we have inside us the physiology, and we can cultivate the tools to be able to resolve what is unresolved. And it's an important thing, and I've seen it over and over again with working with clients, is that people's overall health improves as they do the practice. So learning and practicing the CRIM skills, it helps individuals learn to read their nervous system. You're going to hear that a few times today, and return to a zone of well-being, which we're going to call the resilient zone. And we're going to go over it in just a bit through the use of simple wellness skills that are accessible to everyone. So, yeah, Constance, you want to add something?
Well, are we ready to go on to the next slide?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. So these are the CRIM was developed through the Trauma Resource Institute. So these are the core values of the Trauma Resource Institute. And I just wanted to put this up because it so meshes with the core values of the work that Reconnects, of service to the earth, service to community, social justice, dignity and respect for every person and family and community. And when we come in to offer the work that Reconnects, we're also coming with this sense that each person has value, each person is resilient, has the capacity to make a difference. So that we just wanted to bring that in. And just to see all the variety of faces that this CRIM work has been used around the planet in post-genocide, post-natural disasters, post-wars, during wars. So it's really been carefully designed to be applicable to a large variety of situations and culturally appropriate to just about anybody. So that's one of the things that's really attractive about it. I think, Deb, this is you.
Yeah. So, following the format of the work that reconnects, we're going to be doing an experiential introduction to some of the CRIM skills, and we're going to weave it in with the WTR practices. And we wanted to let you know that this is just a taste of the model, and I'm going to do a plug. We hope that you're going to join us for the 5-week course that we're going to be teaching in March that will deepen into the material. But we also hope that today you will get something that you can use right away, and you'll learn something new from the material that we're doing.
So Deborah, can I intersect? Because
Yes.
you reminded me, I forgot the piece about, as with the work that reconnects, CRIM starts with gratitude.
Mhm.
So I will be, as we go along, weaving in how this process overlaps with the work that reconnects spiral and core assumptions. So I'll be coming in and out like that. So thank you.
Someone has asked a question about telling us a little about the Trauma Resource Institute, or TRI, and we're going to do that a little bit later at the end of the workshop. So we'll be happy to answer that question, but we'll do it a little bit later. All right, so I want to just start with the exercise that we do. Any of the exercises that we do are optional. And I'm going to invite you to listen to yourself and your body. If something feels too much, please come out of the practice and do what you need to do to re-regulate. And according to the form of WTR, we're going to be doing the practice first, and then we'll be going over the skill afterwards. So that is also in the format of WTR. So in this moment, I'm just going to invite you to sit in your chair or lie down on the floor or ground. You might even be standing, and find a position that's comfortable. And just take a moment to find the most comfortable position. And as you do that, you're sort of settling in. You might lower your eyes or close them if that is comfortable. Really taking an extra moment to let down into that comfortable position right here, right now. And as you do that, you might move your attention to feel the earth holding you up. Sensing the weight of your body on the chair or the ground or whatever you're contacting. Just noticing what you're aware of and how you contact the ground. From that place, you might notice, or you might bring to mind, a person, a place, a being, a thing, a pet, anything or something that gives you strength, or something that inspires you, or makes you feel calm. Just letting something bubble up to your awareness. And take a moment to be with that. Then you might sense, how does it feel in your body? What is the first sensation that comes into your awareness? Where do you feel it? You might feel nothing, but if you do feel something, you might notice if it's pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Just taking your time to sense something in your body. And then we're not going to stay here too long. Then gently bringing your awareness back to the room around you. Beginning to invite your awareness outwards. You might sense the room around you from your body. You might hear things in the room. You might hear things coming from Zoom. You might be drawn to open your eyes and begin to explore the room around you. Just coming back out into present moment in whatever way feels right for you. Yeah. And then wherever you are, might gently open your eyes, and we're going to come back to the screen, back to the Zoom land to learn and share with each other. Great. So we just did the first 3 skills of Crown. We did grounding, resourcing, and tracking. And we did one of the help now skills, orienting. And we're going to go into this a little bit more in more depth. But before we do that, we'd like you to sort of share a little bit about how that was for you. And we're going to do it in a very specific way. I think we have we had 250 people sign up for the workshop, and we have 80 people, 86 participants, I think. So as much as we would love to have people individually share with the group, it is too many people for that. So we're going to go into triads, and we're going to have you share with each other. And so I'm going to give you the format of what we wanted, of how we are going to invite the sharing, and then Constance is going to give you a couple more details, and then we'll take you into breakout rooms. So the sharing that we'd like you to do is you're going to be in a room with 2 other people, and we'd like you to share your name, where your feet touch the earth, if you'd like, and if you feel comfortable with what person, place, or thing that you're grateful for. That's tying in the WTR material. And then if you feel really adventurous, then you might share what you notice in your body as you talk about that. So that's a little bit of conversation. And I think, Constance, why don't you bring a bit of that to the WTR lens?
Okay. So as we go, funny noise happening. As we go around the spiral, we know from the work that Reconnects, we start with gratitude. And gratitude puts us in touch with those things that soothe our nervous systems. So it's a resource. Gratitude is a huge resource on so many levels. But in terms of working with the work that Reconnects and CRIM, using the gratitude appreciation language for a way to find that which resources you, just it works. And that resourcing is always available to us. And it's something to weave through, and you're giving people at the beginning this resource that they can have in a workshop that they can come back to anytime they're feeling they're getting pushed out of their resilience zone, or they're coming to the edge of starting to feel nervous. They can bring this resource back in. So it's a tool that you can use for yourself anytime. It's also a good thing for you as a facilitator. I can think about it right now. Okay, my tree is coming in so that I don't speed up and start going too fast, but I stay present because I bring that resource in that grounds me, and I could just feel my nervous system shifting. So we have that tool as Work That Reconnects facilitators for when we go into honoring our pain and anything else that we're working with. So we're going to go into the triads, and we're going to ask we'll have 3 minutes for each person, and we'll give you a little minute at the beginning to say hi and say your names and greet each other. And Frida will give you 3-minute notices, give you a start, and then 3-minute notices so we can make sure everybody gets heard. So just arbitrarily, we'll have the person with the brightest top go first. Well, just so we can get started without negotiations. And when at the end, there'll be a notice that comes up that says the meeting will stop in 1 minute, don't push that. Give yourself that minute, and then you'll automatically be brought back to the group. And if you want to pass, you can always say pass. And if you need help, if you end up in a room all by yourself, just come back to the main room. What's the button called? Leave room, I think. What's it called? Leave room?
Leave room or leave meeting. So you want them to leave the room.
Yeah, you want to leave the room, and you can come back here, and then Frida will reorganize you. Okay? Anything else I'm supposed to say, Frida?
I think that's it.
Oh, I have one more thing. thing. If you, so I'm typing in, I will type in the 4 things. I'll repeat.
I've got it almost done.
Okay. If you do not want to partake in this, what we'd like you to do is don't go into your room if you don't want to do any of the sharing. And then what we'll do is we'll move you into the waiting room. And if you find yourself in a room where either you don't have anyone or people aren't sharing, you can leave the room and come back, and we will put you in a different room. So that was the best way that we could figure this out, because there was so many different people. So we wanted to give you the option of not sharing and not going into a room. And if that is completely okay, and we just stay in this main room. And then if you find yourself in a place where you need other people to share with, then leave the room and come back, and then we'll put you in a different room. Okay?
Thank you. We have lots of things put in now with all the questions. Thank you for all that.
I did notice that there were a couple of you that had more than one, that were sharing a screen. So I tried to account for that as well when I made rooms, but if you have any issues, do let me know. I think there's currently 1 room with 2 people, but there will be more people to add. So I think we're ready.
Yay. Woo, off into
There you go. You should receive your invitation now.
Okay, are we all back? So we're going to take a couple minutes to do a little debrief, but one of the things I wanted to mention that I'm learning about working in a more trauma-informed way is that a lot of times when the work reconnects, what we'll ask is people to do an experience or do a practice, and then talk about why and the content afterwards to get it to be embodied. And I work a lot that way. And what I'm learning is that as we have people coming to our programs that are more traumatized and stressed, that preparing people to go into a practice is really important. So for this resourcing practice, I could have talked more at the beginning about why resourcing, why gratitude, what the reasons are, so that people go in with a sense of trusting and comfort with the process, not sort of going, oh, well, what am I getting into? So that I wanted to say that. So that's a dance for you as a facilitator. But the more trauma informed is to give people the whys first and then have them experience it. And, depending on your group, you can do it the other way around too. So, Debra.
Oh, and let me just add, because I wanted to also give a big thanks to Frida, how smoothly she made that go through. And the other aspect of that is to give people the opportunity to opt out, which was, we had some people that took advantage of that and said, I would like to go to the waiting room. And they didn't do the exercise, and they weren't pushed past their boundaries. So offering those different choices for exercises as you're tracking things can make it more trauma informed and make it safer for people to come in on their own speed or their own timing or their own pacing. So would anyone like to share how that was for them to do that practice or what they discovered? Maybe what you felt in your body as you brought your mind to the resource and listened to others. We are going to use the raise hand, which I believe is at the bottom. Can someone signal yes if they could? The raise hand is at the bottom of the screen. There's so many of you that we might not be able to page through. Yeah. So anyone that would like to share how that was for them with the large group? Constance, I'll have you track. Larry Zwig. Larry Zwig, could you unmute yourself?
Oh, there.
Actually, I was just playing with the with the.
All right, great.
And for some, it's also within the reaction button, the raise hand option, depending on which Zoom update you have.
Well, and it's also for mine, it's in the participants. I have to click participants and then it comes up.
Great. And people could also put into chat a couple words about maybe what you experienced in your body, how it was feeling to find that resource, that being place thing that uplifts you, makes you feel good, how it was to listen to another person. Joan Cowden.
And Nancy LaPlaca has her hand up too.
Great.
I realized that I do spend a lot of time. had never thought of gratitude as a resource, but we start our morning with gratitude in my home, and really committed deep gratitude, a feeling of gratitude, not just talking about gratitude. And this past year has enhanced that even more. And I realized how excited it makes me feel in my body when I'm experiencing that moment of gratitude. And even when I'm grounded, it doesn't take away from the groundedness. If anything, it just enhances it. It makes it bigger. But my whole body resonates with that feeling of gratitude as an excitement. And that's something that I noticed and I was able to share with the group.
Okay.
Great. Thank you. One more.
Yeah, we have we have a number of people with their hands up. Nancy
Okay.
LaPlaca, Irene Mazer, and then Ben Cadell.
I think we only have time for one more. And
No,
then...
we have time for all three of those. We have time for all
Okay.
those. Yeah, we're good.
Hi, this is Nancy, and I want to say it was just wonderful to hear the perspective of other people, especially with this pandemic year, hardly ever getting out, and to hear their stories and what they're doing in their lives. And they were incredibly interesting and creative in solving these problems and being grateful. So it was really wonderful.
Thanks, Nancy. Ben, would you like to share?
Yeah, and I think I'm going to echo a lot of what Nancy was saying, but for me, it was the sharing kind of amplifies the feeling. And I had my own positive, pleasant experience. And then to hear about others their experiences were slightly different. And it felt like that augmented my experience. Like I could kind of vicariously expand my experience by listening to others. And that sense of connection was really fantastic.
Great. Thanks, Ben.
We have one more.
Jane, I think will be our final sharer for now.
Thank you. I actually wanted to ask a sort of more theory question about the concept of sharing before a practice, the reasons for doing it. And I have a sense sometimes that I share some things in a trauma-informed way before a practice and then after a practice as well, much in the same way that when you're teaching, you tell people what you're going to teach them and teach it, and then you tell them what they have taught them. So I just wanted to share that as a thought.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. My experience is it's a both and. And because, my training, I'm an educator, and my training was a lot in theater and education, and my use of theater and embodiment was always the edge that I was working on, getting teachers to get people embodied in the material, whatever it was, without going into their heads. But in this work, we're trying to do this dance. So I will go to the next slide, I believe. Thank you. Sure. And then Debra, are you doing this one or am I doing this one?
Yeah, no, I am. Yeah. So there's just one quick thing I wanted to add around that. A little bit of it. We're going to be supporting you to learn to track your own systems in this way. And so what we're inviting for people to do is to track and learn for themselves, how much material do I want ahead of time? How much can I be in the experience? How does the sharing at the end of the experience support or take me out of what I just learned? So it's a lot of it is inviting the person into their experience of learning, and it makes it more difficult for the educator a little bit, because if you have people at different pacings, but just making the pace of the whole training wide enough that people can have a bit of their own pacing in the learning. So I thought that was a great question.
Thank you.
So we're talking a lot about resilience here. And what does resiliency mean? If you Google resiliency in Google, you come up with thousands of different definitions. And so we're going to be talking a lot about resiliency. So in CRIM, we feel it's important that we start that CRIM's definition and what that is. So resiliency is an individual's and community's ability to identify and use individual and collective strengths in living fully with compassion in the present moment. Oh, Constance, we'll have to go back. Yeah.
Sorry.
And to thrive while managing the activities of daily living. Now, that was a lot of words. So take a moment and maybe just sense in as you're reading the words and you heard me say them, and just sense what happens for you as you take that in. And Constance, there's that gray box again.
I know. That's what I was trying to.
Got it. Perfect. Yeah. So what we would like you to do is examine your own definition of resilience. And to support this discovery, you might think of a time when something was slightly difficult happened to you and you were able to move through it. That's what we would say, you were resilient. How does that inform what resilience is for you? And Jennifer's asking, can we go back to the definition just one more time? So as you consider sort of your internal definition of resilience, we all might have a little or a lot different perspective on what resilience is based on our lives and our experience. I know me having to quit my job and lose everything and live in a really difficult place. what my definition of resilience got vastly changed because of those experiences in my life. So some people might say resilience is the ability to bounce back, or it's the ability, even when faced with difficult experience, to remember who I am. Some people might say it's feeling grounded. Some people might say it's feeling happy. So as you sort of sit here and sort of hear all of these different things, I'd love to hear what your definition of resilience is.
Again, if you can write in chat, so you have a chance, so we can harvest some of your words that way, because we will not be able to hear from everybody.
Maybe Constance, would you like to share what your definition of resilience is?
My definition of resilience is to be able to keep breathing and grounded in the face of challenges and keep my heart open.
And then Steve, would you like to share? Steve Levin?
Yeah, when I'm not resilient, I notice I've lost connection with myself and I'm confused or lost. So resilience for me is first coming back home to myself and then going back out into the world with myself as company.
Yeah. Here's one: being more like a sapling. Oops, moving too fast. I can't find it now. Being more like a sapling so you don't break in a strong wind. Feel connected within, between, and beyond, so it can draw on wide resources.
Laura, would you like to share? Laura Quebec?
So my definition of resilience, well, for me, when I feel my resilience is when I come back to myself and I'm really able to connect to my intuition and to connect to what needs to be done in my life. And it just makes me have so much energy. And that's really what I've been missing, but that's what it is. Gives me creative energy.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Working together to overcome problems. Maybe
tapping into an attitude of hope and trust from within, and then acting from that attitude.
And so you might notice what happens for you as you hear others' definition of resilience. We'll ask one more person to share. I think we'll have Joan share. I think your hand was up next.
For me, resilience is the ability to adapt gracefully to changing circumstances. And I've had a lot of changing circumstances in my life, so it's something that I've had to continually work at. But without what Steve Levine was talking about, I really loved that. Finding yourself first, finding your center first, coming home to yourself. Adaptation really works better if you can do that first. So I appreciate what I'm hearing here from everybody because it informs what for me is a constant process of adaptation in this world as it's changing for us. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
One of the Krim saying is, adversity is not our destiny. And I think that might be something that really circles what everyone is sharing. So thank you. So as we move through the presentation today, you might begin to sense your definition of resiliency and how it might grow or change.
And remember, you have a resource. You have what you found through looking at what you're grateful for as something you can bring in moment to moment to make sure you do stay present and stay in your body, because that's the gift of that practice. So I'm going to share screen.
Yeah, I'm going to share one more thing, and it
Oh,
comes
okay.
a little bit from my practice. As a facilitator, you may notice that if someone has been significantly traumatized, they might not be able to connect to gratitude. They might not be able to connect to resource or any of those. And it's why in the initial exercise, we said, oh, nothing might be there. There was a portion in my journey where they were having me connect to resource and this, and I was like, there is nothing. I was mad, and they sort of initiated, oh, you know, if there isn't something, and I was like, oh, a big huge pile of money to pay for all this damn therapy. And then I went, oh, yes, there it is right there. So just really appreciating where people are, and sometimes it's just a small thing, and sometimes it's about getting to name how frustrated they are and things like that, that can be gratitude and can be resources. So I invite you to use my story if you need to. I use it all the time in my practice. All right, Constance.
Thank you for sharing. I have similar story of doing so much work and going, but wait, it's not changing, it's not changing. Yeah. And coming back to the very simple, just biological reactions of being able to shift on very minute, that's opened the door for a whole new way of being. So thank you. Okay. Oh,
so
this.
Yes, community resiliency model. Put them all up, Constance. It's okay.
I don't know why it's.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So this model is very much invested in a perspective shift. If you look to the left on the screen in the blue, that conventional thinking about, you know, sort of people that have been exposed to a lot of stress or traumas, or in terms of looking at people's behavior, you might hear someone say, people are just bad. They just need to be punished. Or people don't care. They just don't care. Or you might people say, what's wrong with that person? We need to stop making excuses for people. They just need to get over it. I mean, if you look on the internet right now, that's all you see. So the overarching lens of this is, what's wrong with you? That's the question that's there. And thankfully, more recently, there's been a wave of focus on trauma-informed awareness. The lens there is people are suffering. People need an effective intervention to help with their suffering. People that have this lens might think people care, but they lack the understanding and skills. And what we need to do is we need to learn how trauma impacts a child's or an adult's development in order to fix this. And the question that goes with this lens is, what happened to you? That becomes important as people develop treatments and develop supports for people, as we support the well-being of our children, our schools, and our communities. And that is more trauma-informed awareness. And if you look over to the right in the green, there's this third perspective. So CRIM has brought in the aspect of resiliency informed. And what does that mean? We've just explored the definition of resiliency. So CRIM's lens is the first one on top. People are resilient. That's the primary belief. I got this when I was doing the work at the beginning, way back in Hakomi therapy, and people are whole and complete and have what they need inside them to do the work that they need to do. So that's another way of saying people are resilient. People need our compassion as they learn new skills. A core principle of CRIM is any person can learn self-regulation skills to help their nervous system get back into balance. And CRIM supports that we all need to learn how skills of well-being can reduce suffering for ourselves, for our families, and for our communities. So CRIM's lens is what's right with you and what are your strengths. So this is a paradigm shift that CRIM supports in bringing to the world. So I think Sarah had a question. We're going to have Constance. She's going to talk about the WTR spiral. I believe the recording of this is going to be available, so you'll be able to get it that way. And we'll see whether we can give the slides. I think we are able to do that, Constance, and we'll have to figure out our mechanics on that. But
Mhm.
you will definitely have access to
The recording. So this perspective shift in Work That Reconnects language is the seeing with new eyes. And the resiliency informed, I think, just reframing the Work That Reconnects as a resiliency practice. And the core assumptions of the work, which I did a Work That Reconnects workshop with Sarah Nadar the other day. She did for the Work That Reconnects Weavers. And we spent the whole morning talking about the assumptions of the Work That Reconnects. And that was so powerful. And those assumptions, like these resiliency informed shifts, are that people are enough. People are interconnected to Gaia. They are part of the wisdom of this earth, and that the earth is alive, and that we are much more ancient and powerful than we think, and that our love is part of our pain, and that our pain is not who we are, but is a reflection of our love for the earth, and that we can choose to go into that connection. And so these core assumptions of the work of really understanding that people are resilient, we do have the wisdom, and we can act on behalf of life. I want to read a quote from Joanna, except I think I can't find it at the moment, but it's that, she believes that this earth will be saved by ordinary people whose love is greater than their fear. Ordinary people who find their power in their connection to the earth, to each other, and to that web of life. So that's the core resiliency perspective of the Work That Reconnects.
During the presentation, there may be in the chat some of the things that we haven't gotten to. If we haven't gotten to a question that you have, because there's so much coming in, just put it in again so that we can see it, and we're happy to answer, and we'll try to get to everything at the end. Just want to note that. So go ahead. Do you need something? Okay. So this is the resilience zone, and we wanted you to all raise your hand. How many of you have seen this before? And Frida's going to count to see how many hands we have up. How many of you have seen this resilience zone or the window of tolerance? Just so we get a sense of that. All right. So not too many, 6 or 7. All right. So thank you for sharing that with us. We have some simple concepts here. And like I said, they might be a review for some of you, but we want to put them in the CRIM language. And so the first concept is that we all have a resilience zone. We talked about that before. And in the resilience zone, we are our best self, no matter what it looks like. We can manage the stresses that are thrown at us or come our way. We can say, yes, that was hard, but I can keep doing it. We're really able to manage our lives in the resilience zone. In the resilience zone, you see there's this sort of a wave. Nope, not yet. So go back. Ooh, you got a preview. So in the resilience zone, you can see there's a wave. There's a charge, and then there's a release. There can be times in your day when you have more stress, and other times when you're calmer. There can be times in your day when you have more energy and then you're more tired. There's an ebb and flow as you move through your day or your life. And again, I sort of want to stop for a moment and ask each of you, we won't share this time, but can you bring to mind a time when you were in your resilience zone? Our first exercise was intended to do that, when you were sensing gratitude or when you noticed we brought up a strength or something. So just call that into your mind and then notice what happens in your body as you do that. This is a resiliency pause, which we'll talk about in the course that we're doing. But these quick resiliency pauses are things that I do with my practice, and they're things that you might interject as a facilitator throughout your trainings, just to help people from moving outside this resilience zone. There was a question of how would you describe the difference between the resilience zone and a person's comfort zone? That's a very good question. So we're not always comfortable, and it's the perfect lead-in to the next slide. So Constance will take there. This is a little bit of the difference. Being in the resilience zone might be sitting and feeling calm or comfortable and having a cup of coffee, but it's not only that. As you can see with the slide, it's not just the happy zone. It can be the excited zone, the angry zone, the tired zone. You could be relaxed, you could be angry, you could be scared. When you're in the resilience zone, you feel those feelings, but you can manage them. You're not drawn away into deep sorrow that feels like it'll never go away. Also, some people have passionate anger that makes them strong advocates. They're still within their resilience zone and operating from their best selves. And this is often enlightening for people. I actually had a business meeting the other day where someone I was meeting with was not comfortable with people in the meeting being frustrated and in their resilience zone. They labeled it as toxicity, and we had to have a discussion about when people were in their resilience zones and how it was to allow that level to be there, and what it might be like for us to expand our range of resilience to allow other people to be in their resilience zone and in different states of emotion. So Constance, I may have you answer Ben's question about describing the difference between resilience zone and flow zone or growth edge, because I'm not familiar with those.
I think the flow zone is maybe the higher level of being part of your resilience zone, but they're not states that I talk about, or we talk about particularly in the work that Reconnects. I think a flow zone is as a creative state. If I'm painting and I'm really in the flow of the creative process, I'm in that flow zone and in my resilience zone because I'm functioning at my highest self. So I don't think one could be in the flow zone outside of your resilience zone, would be my answer to that question.
And then we have a definition: resilience, the opposite of fragility. I believe that is wonderfully wise.
I like that.
Yeah. All right, we'll go to the next
one.
And we are all wonderful humans on this planet, and sometimes something happens. And here is our resilience zone, as we saw before, and the red bolt happens, and we have reminders of stressful events that have happened to us, or we might be living right now in really stressful times. And instead of being in that resilience zone, we might find ourselves moving into what in CRIM they call the high zone, where you might feel edgy, irritable, manic, you might feel anxiety or panic, or might have angry outbursts and pain. Or conversely, you might be stuck in the low zone, where you might feel excess sadness, or depression, you might feel disconnected or numb, maybe not even wanting to get out of bed. And you can also sort of flip between the two. I don't know whether you've seen that with people where you can be in the high zone and then go to the low zone, and then the high zone and then the low zone. So I want to stop for a moment and ask each of you, have you ever been in your resilience zone and then been bumped out into a high or low zone and then returned to your resilience zone? I think I did this in the definition of resilience, but I meant to if I didn't, where we asked you to imagine this and sense what happens inside. And we're seeing, some people are saying yes. Most of us can raise our hand and say that we've been in the resilience zone and in the high zone or low zone, and then return to the resilience zone. I know for me, I was in the high zone for a very, very, very long time when I was working with my panic. But Constance and I are here to tell you today that no matter where you are or where the people that are in your groups are, that we can cultivate awareness of each of the zones so that people can get back into the resilience zone and live a fuller life, be more present with their family and their community. Now, they might need a group to do it. They might need the support of a professional to do it. But I truly believe this, and I see it every day in my practice, with the right support, people can cultivate this ability to move more towards their resilience zone. And this process of being able to recognize, when am I in my resilience zone? When am I in my high zone? When am I in my low zone? Is one of the major concepts of the community resiliency model. Yeah. So I'm sort of turning towards questions, and then I have one more thing and then I'll move over to Constance. Someone asked, where would you locate vulnerability? Vulnerability could be in the resilience zone, or it could be, I think I would probably, it's a little, that's a very good question. It could be either stuck in high, or people could be stuck in low around their vulnerable aspects. They could be vulnerable and keep reaching to be able to attend to it, or they might feel vulnerable and they might go more towards a shutdown. So, but you could also be vulnerable and be in the resilience zone. In fact, that's what we'll see a lot of time that people are actually able to cultivate over time. Very good question. Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do you want to take I can't see the questions because I've got the screen on my computer.
I think that was the only question. I think
Right.
we're good. We'll go to the next slide. And this process of going in and out actually grows the resilience zone. So the good news is the resilience zone is expandable. By bringing awareness to the sensations, that sensation work that we've done today, sensations that are connected to the resilience zone, new neurological pathways develop, and thereby we are increasing our resilience. We're growing resilience zone larger and larger over time. And I know that's true for me. I've grown my resilience zone probably 10,000 times over the years. And I know a lot of you see that in the WTR facilitation as well. So Constance, I'm sort of gonna
Okay.
over to you. Yeah.
So this is a key to looking at the work that reconnects in a new way. We're looking at the work that reconnects as a resilience zone expanding process, which it is. And when we take people around the spiral of the work, I'm just going to go to my images here, beginning with gratitude and framing that as a resource, a place that can help people stay in their resilience zone and know what it feels like. As Debra said, we can expand our resilience zone, but we have to be able to sense it. So it may be very small, it may be teeny at first, but being able to be with that and being able to nurture that in ourselves, but also in our participants in a workshop, and then inviting people into the Honoring Our Pain section of a Work That Reconnects group in an invitational way, making sure that people aren't feeling like they have to go into a truth mandala or have to do it, that they can opt out, so that choice. People who have experienced trauma can feel that they don't have choice. So being able to offer someone a choice to be able to go in to honoring their pain, touching into maybe just a very light touch. But if it's new for someone, that can be expanding their resilience zone. You're also going in to the experience of honoring our pain with others. You're not alone. You're connected. We are mammals. We are mammals. In order to feel in ourselves in that resilience zone, feeling connected to others. So making sure that connection, that holding of space is there for people as they go into the Honoring Our Pain section, and being able to stay in their resilience zone allows that to expand. And if we are to act for the great turning, if we are to bring our wisest, best selves to all the craziness that's happening on the planet right now, we need that resilient zone quite expanded. So being able to be with, as we talk about the rage, the pain, the despair, and not push ourselves out of our resilient zone, because that takes our brains offline, so we don't behave well if we're not in that resilient zone. And then we can start looking with new eyes and going forth. So that's sort of a short version of how the Work That Reconnects can really be a resilience building practice for the great turning. I think. Is that good?
We have a couple of questions. Maybe we could
stop share for a moment.
Yeah, and I'm just checking with Frida. How do we have a little bit of time after 12:30, or are we a hard out at 12:30?
We will remain on for a few minutes afterwards, and we can run over for a few minutes if we need to.
Okay. So what Constance and I would like to, Constance, yeah, we'll do the closing afterwards. So we'll take a couple of questions. One question from Jennifer was, how do you reach a person who has not opened up their heart gratitude? What practices do you use to open people up? I'm gonna more take that to you.
Well, I often ask people to remember a place in nature that made them feel good as they're safe as a child, a pet, an animal, something that's really easy to access for people. I find is the easiest way to, and again, it could be small. I did this resilience practice. I'm going to show you my, when we were doing our training, and I usually go to the trees or nature or, these things. I ended up selecting my fuzzy warm slippers as my resource because they made my feet feel really warm, and I had just given them to myself. So they make me feel that I nurture myself. So it can be a really small thing like fuzzy slippers or warm socks that give you or the people you're working with, something that opens them up to feeling cared for or feeling nurtured or feeling that gratitude, however small.
There was a question. Thank you, Constance. Yeah, there was a question on organizational trauma and resilience, which is quite a big question. So I think how I may answer that, and I know that you might feel entirely unsatisfied as to this answer, is that one way in organizations is for everyone to do their own work. the more regulated we all are in moving into an organization, the more regulated the organization is as a whole. So that's what I would offer. And there's probably more about that that we could answer at a different time.
There's a question about follow-up. Someone has to leave right at 1:30. And yes, Deborah and I are offering a more in-depth CRIM training starting March 29th. It's a 5-webinar series, 5 2-hour webinars where we'll get to go deeper into these different skills, and you'll have a chance to practice, and we'll talk a lot more about the neurobiology and the whole fight, flight, or freeze responses and all of that. Oh, sorry, this was someone was saying they had to leave right away, so I wanted to answer that question. And that will be up on the Work Through, I think it's already up on the Work Through Reconnects Network website, and it'll be on my website and Deborah's as well.
So my thought now is I don't see any new questions. So maybe bring the last slide up and we'll close. And then after we close, we'll stay for a couple of minutes for anyone who we didn't answer your questions for those that have to leave right at 1:30.
So evaluation form, I think Frida's going to put it in the chat, and it will probably get sent out with you in an email. It's really helpful for us to get feedback. Did this meet your needs? What would you like more of, less of? And the building of resilience in stressed and traumatized world. The 5-session webinars will start on the 29th. And there's an early, anybody who's been on this call, there's an early bird registration that's goes for the next week till February 27th. And as we saw, there are quite a number of skills. So we'll go into the 6 core skills and give people chances to practice.
Yeah, 12
So I
to
think that's it. Anything else?
EFT. Well, I would just like to say thank you all. You have been so wonderfully interactive. This has been a wonderful opportunity. I have to say thank you to Frida. I really need to give her a standing shout out. She's done a magnificent job supporting us and making this be smooth and effortless. So I just want to say thank you, Frida, so much.
Yay.
Yeah. And I hope to get to meet all of you sometime in the future. Constance.
Yeah. Well, just to say, if anybody would like to put a word, and we feel into your body right now, feel into what's coming up for you. If you want to put a word or two in the chat, that's always a nice way to close out. If we were in a room, we'd all say it together, but we're not. So again, so much gratitude to everybody who's coming. Thank you so much for the work you're doing, for the great turning, for the work you're doing for healing of this planet. Oh, thank you. Hugged, full of curiosity, peaceful, grateful, connected. Thank you, everyone. World community, we are. The Work That Reconnects network is just all over the planet. And it's very exciting to have these opportunities to bring people together to share. Inspired, wonderful work. Thank you. So this is one of my little things I always like to do. Can I have everybody hold their hands out like this and put your fingers out and touch the person next to you? So we're all holding hands. So wherever we are on the planet, we are all connected because we're all part of this beautiful being of Gaia. So thank you. We all step into it together. Thank you. So we'll stay on for a few more questions. Thank you.
I would also like to add that if you filled out the JOT form earlier to register and were not able to make a donation, but would like to, now we do leave the JOT form up and would welcome additional donations for our lovely facilitators. So I just put that in the chat. I'll follow up with an email as well for all of these resources.
And for Frida and the Work That Reconnects network.
Yeah, that also supports. WTR.
Thank you.
And just by way of closing, we will remain on for a few moments, but thank you all for joining us today to learn more about the work that Reconnects Network's webinars and Conversation Cafe series. Please visit our website at workthatreconnects.org, and we'll remain on for a few moments to connect with anyone who has additional questions. Thank you much.